networks are not even getting clicks like that. So this shows like there's an opportunity for this, what we're doing here on this show. But our society, we don't even have respect for nature, because that's what I was thinking about in class today. Because it's like I was thinking about the technology that they used way back in the day, the Aboriginals peoples of the Americas, and their technology didn't like a lot of it was made out of sticks and strings and stuff. That's why they have a hard time finding archaeological evidence for these peoples, because that stuff biodegrades. You know what I'm saying? Um, that, but that's why they did that. That's what people don't understand. And even the way they built everything, and it's like they built things in a way so that they could have the least impact on the natural environment, and the natural environment can go back to the way it was before they got there.
Well, and see, and that's
What they teach us, and um, and it's crazy because they started warfare once they came up with the bow and arrow. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into that. Let's play a little bit of this.
Biden promised to impose additional sanctions on Russia as he doubled down on his previous statement calling Vladimir Putin a war criminal.
He is a war criminal, but we have to gather the information. We have to continue to provide Ukraine with the weapons they need to continue the fight, and we have to gather all the detail so this can be have a war crime trial.
Bullshit. And then you heard what he said. We got to make sure Ukraine gets all the weapons they need, bruh. Make sure NATO is make sure Raytheon, Boeing, and them and BlackRock them making plenty of money.
Well, and that's the thing that we have to really pay attention to with the narrative, because they're the last three presidents have, well, no, not the last one, but the three previous were, to Trump, were considered war criminals on the international level as well. And I think because of America's powers across the world is one of the reasons why they might not say too much, because they're scared that they might come and invade their country. For you mean tell what side? Whose side you on?
What'd you say? Who?
Yeah.
Huh?
You talking kind of funny. Whose side are you really on? You know what I'm saying? Let's find this out today.
44 authorized bombings on 7 countries the very day he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, that's Obama. You're talking about Obama, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and
man.
And of course we know what. Of course everybody knows what Bush did, and a lot of the stuff that was happening during what's his name's Clinton's terms. I mean, there was a lot of things going on that I'm sure
all of his was covert. It was kind of like no major wars really, but they were all little ones that were like
or supporting roles in things that showed up, like
he started that shit. I want to say that like assassin, that guy's a bad guy, take him out.
Well, I mean, we talking about Bush 1. I mean, you got to think about all the stuff that was happening in South America.
Bush Senior, yeah. You're right. And that's the thing.
Probably
the CIA.
A continuation. I was just gonna say, which was probably a continuation into Clinton's, terms.
That makes a lot of sense. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. But that shows that it doesn't matter Republican or Democrat.
No, it doesn't.
Especially on this particular topic.
No, it's on an international level. It never does matter. That the whole split comes within when it comes to the democracy. Democrats and Republicans. That's more of something to decide. To split us up on the inside.
But what I also say is that, you know, we have the turnover of the president every 4 to 8 years. Those CIA guys be in there forever,
Yeah,
and
and
those generals, the military generals, they be in
well,
there forever.
I mean, don't forget about our Senate. You know, I mean, if the Senate had changes like the House, I mean, things would probably be
And you wonder how many of these people had long-term agendas, especially Bush Senior. He's a
you
really good
wonder.
example. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, just for the people out there to think, just, you know, mental exercise. You know, people, just Bush Senior specifically, but I'm sure there's plenty other names. Long-term agendas with long-term relationships that they have with people. You know what I mean? All over the world, or companies. You know,
Well,
and
some of them are still like some of our past presidents or secretary of states, different high level people from our government that are out of office, um, end up still being a part of stuff like the Trilateral
yeah, and
Commission.
whatever they was
And
involved in before, because like that chick Amy Coney Barrett, I swear she looked like, you know, they say she a part of a cult, bro.
shit, she might be the cult. I mean, you know,
Queen Bee.
that's uh
She could be the queen bee. Nah, it's one of those ones where it's like the dudes are the ones that run, and the women have like no power and all that. You know how it goes, that patriarchal shit.
yeah,
Oh,
but
we talked about that in class, the matriarchy a bit in the class today, and it was like, you know, uh, they said that the men didn't own nothing. He said we were talking about a specific group. It was like the Pueblos people, I can't think of the right term for them, but they lived in those Pueblo buildings, and he was like, it's matriarchal, and when you how you find out you got a divorce is when you come home and all your clothes is outside of the house. And he was
well,
talking about how like they also had like a separate community of like bachelor men. They had a area on the compound for them. So that's if you was to get a divorce, or if you're, you know, you couldn't live there with your wife no more, then you would go and you would live there with the bachelor group.
yeah, I mean, I've never really heard of it that way, but I mean, I know that under the matriarchal system, that was the way to get things handed down from generation to generation
Mother,
from the
even the
mother.
power, even the power. People don't realize, even the power, the one that was the chief or the king or whatever you want to call it, the boss, the president,
Yeah,
that power was given to him by his mom.
yes, and that's for millennia.
I don't know why people don't know this stuff. Let me play some more of this.
This guy is brutal, and what's happening in Bucha is outrageous, and everyone's seen it.
Biden's National Security Advisor
He
Jake
made it through
Sullivan
a
said
full
Monday the U.S. may help build a war crimes case against Putin
Full
at the
sentence.
International Criminal Court in The Hague. Like
paragraph.
Russia and Ukraine, the United States has not ratified the Rome Statute, which created the International Criminal Court. The
Yeah, I
United
wouldn't
Nations
either when
warned
I'm the
Monday
one that's mainly
humanity
being a
has
war
less than 3
criminal.
years to
They would have to
slash
investigate
greenhouse gas
us.
emissions nearly in half
Huh?
in order to prevent the most catastrophic effects of the climate crisis.
We'd be the first country need to be investigated.
But exactly, that's what I'm saying. I'm sure that's the reason why it hadn't been ratified, because they had to be careful of, you know, how they were trading. It's like, oh, well, damn, well, if they do this, like this can be brought up against us with no, you know, like easily. Because I mean, there's endless,
They've been trying to
you
bring
know,
him for the longest. You know how like apartheid in South Africa, and it was like world outrage and shit. And it has been that for about black people here in the United States, but that is suppressed and pushed down and like ignored because the West only feels like the world is Europe. You know what I mean? In Australia and in the United States. So whatever the other countries are saying, they just disregard it as like, you know, whatever. They're just talking some blah blah blah. They're just talking hot air.
Yeah. Well, I think mostly because a lot of it don't really affect them, and our voices are not loud enough to really, show that there's a big problem. I mean, there's those who, get the reports back because we have enough people of all different nations here in this country to where the treatment of these different groups is well known around the world, but for them to I guess by us not fighting for these things on a higher rate than we have, then what how much can they do? You know what I'm saying? So if you're getting beat over the head, you never say ow. Say, oh well, it must not hurt.
People texting me. Let me play a bit more.
In a major new report, scientists with the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change found that without immediate and dramatic action, it will be impossible to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the report documented a litany of broken climate promises by nations.
It is a file of shame, cataloging the empty pledges that put us firmly on track towards an unlivable world. We are on a fast track to climate disaster. Major cities underwater, unprecedented heat waves, terrifying storms, widespread water shortages, the extinction of 1 million species of plants and animals. And this is not fiction or exaggeration. It is what science tells us will result from our current energy policies.
The World Health Organization warned Monday 99% of the world's population breathes air that exceeds safe limits for air pollution, including fine particulates that can penetrate deep into the lungs. The WHO called on nations to slash fossil fuel use, saying the same pollution that's triggering the climate emergency is responsible for most of the 7 million premature deaths each year due to indoor and outdoor air pollution.
Man, when they talk about the damn particulates in the air, I ain't gonna lie, they scaring the shit out of me.
Well, I mean, they say that in one voice, but then you see these damn chemtrails everywhere, where it's a bunch, like however many parts per like million, like they're creating clouds out of these particulates that they speak of, but is that to be ignored? Like, I mean, but my whole thing is, okay, yeah, pollution is a problem, but to try to bring that into the same conversation as global warming is somewhat ridiculous, because when people start seeing solar flares, and because we're just getting that close to the sun, look, I mean, let's see how we fix that by emissions.
Let me play some more of this, because this screen with the baby on there, I need to change.
In Brazil, hundreds of indigenous leaders arrived in the capital, Brasilia, Monday to begin a 10-day protest camp demanding lawmakers reject a bill that would allow more mining and oil extraction on indigenous lands. This is an indigenous Pataxó leader.
We are here together with other indigenous people to fight to defend our people and for equality among nations, to make it known that we, the indigenous people, were the first inhabitants of Brazil, and we are here to show Brazil and the world that we are not dead and that we are living history. We are a living book.
This comes as Brazilian health researchers say malaria cases among the Yanomami indigenous people have skyrocketed over the past decade due to a surge in illegal gold mining in the Amazon. The destructive practice contaminates the soil and rivers with mercury, destroys plants, and disrupts the ecosystem, triggering ideal conditions for the spread of mosquito-borne diseases. Despite this, the far-right Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro continues to encourage mining and protected areas of the Amazon rainforest. Iranian officials say the United
Comments on that one?
Yeah, I don't know. This is, I think that's the same guy that they mentioned to be just like Trump. But
Yeah,
I mean,
Bolsonaro.
yeah, this, I mean, to me, this is you know, that's part of the problem. I mean, you know, you're wondering why our farmlands are becoming you know, depleted of you know, the essential minerals, um, things of that such. But
I'll be right back.
yeah, I just don't feel like you can really put all of that together in one conversation. I mean, you got people cutting down the trees in the Amazon and thinking that, you know, that's gonna solve, you know, a place for new farmland, but you're still doing stuff like this where you're putting one of the most dangerous uh minerals or chemicals on, you know, in the ground or and in the waters. So it's just it's senseless. Like they're not trying to fix the problem, in my opinion. You know, these are people who really don't care about our planet and have not for, you know, as long as they've been in power. Their main thing was just to extract as much wealth as they could, make themselves rich. They can go somewhere where, you know, they'll be fine. The rest of the world will have to suffer through their mistakes. And, you know, here we are, you know, trying to survive on, you know, land that can't produce good, you know, good minerals for us to have a healthy life.
Yeah.
What you say
That's
about
what.
it? Or anybody? I know
Yeah,
Doc's there somewhere.
I got it.
Yeah.
What is that? Huh?
Yeah, I
It's
was
chicken.
saying the same thing, man. I really don't think that they truly care about the environment like they try to put out there. You know,
I got you.
Yeah, it's mostly political, I would
really
say.
and truly,
I mean,
yeah, it's the same thing they did with the tobacco, with smoking. You know, you think about you think about how in the day when they were truly against it, and then they took out these different the cigarette manufacturers began to give these different states and governments, you know, a portion of that money that they made off of cigarettes to and the cigarette, it was supposed to be used to push the campaign for non-smoking ads, when these states, all they did was take that money and sold their different bonds or whatever that they were receiving from the cigarette manufacturers to borrow money from the stock markets, and now they have created such a deficit in so many
Yo,
states that wouldn't
watch
even
the there's any
pay
juice
back
out of that.
the
Yeah,
money
yeah.
that they're
Shake it
even
down.
making, you know.
Appreciate you,
So
bro.
now they're attacking other things like vape. They're saying, oh, vaping is bad. You know, they're trying to crack down on that to increase the sales of smoking. But, you know, so you're telling me that vaping is bad and smoking cigarettes are okay? You know, it's just, it's the same thing with this whole climate control thing, man. I think it's a way, it's a scheme for them to make money. It's a scheme for them to play on the hearts of people
Missing the
that, you know,
comments. I'm real late on comments. Let me read them, Doc.
that care about the environment. But at the end of the day, the rich don't care. You know, the rich are still mining. They're still doing all of these things. They're still, you know, they're still putting all of these chemicals in the ground. Look at what they're doing in West Texas and the northwest part of the country with the drilling. You know, that destroys the ground. You know, like
I
they don't
sent you the
care.
press release about the Human Rights Council. It's in your thing, so you can skip those two comments about that.
Okay. Let me go to it then. Let me see. I didn't get a notification, or maybe I had stepped out the room, but I don't see a notification from. It was a Facebook message, right? Then they changed my damn screen. They keep changing this shit every time. Messenger. It was on the Facebook Messenger, right?
Yes.
I didn't get a notification. I'm supposed to go straight to that. It's acting crazy. I'll play a bit of this video while I look for that, because it's not playing. I mean, it's not pulling up. I don't see it.
The United States is responsible for a delay in talks with world powers aimed at restoring the landmark 2015 nuclear deal, which was abandoned by ex-President Trump. A foreign ministry spokesman said Monday talks in Vienna are deadlocked over a few outstanding issues, including Washington's designation of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization.
We are at a point where the United States must decide whether it wants to uphold Trump's legacy just as it has done so far, or if it wants to act as a semi-responsible, if not a fully responsible government and have the agreement happen.
The U.S. State Department said last week only a small number of outstanding issues remain in the talks, which would lift harsh sanctions in exchange for guarantees that Iran will not pursue nuclear weapons. More than 90 refugees drowned in the Mediterranean Sea over the weekend after their overcrowded boat capsized. The refugees had departed from Libya last week as they hoped to reach Europe for safety. Only 4 people survived. The humanitarian aid group Doctors Without Borders urged for the survivors not to be returned to Libya, where they likely face detention and abuse. Between January and the end of March, some 300 refugees died attempting to cross the Mediterranean, according to the International Organization for Migration. For more on this story, go to democracynow.org.
That was skip right over these stories so quickly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, really question, like, I mean, because it baffled me. It made me, like, I'm like, okay, because certain things usually make sense at some point, but when you say that they don't do any kind of marketing or like
yeah, there's no ads on this channel.
Yeah, but I mean, but the thing, you know what? I mean, now that I'm really thinking about it, I mean, the ad is the show is the ad. So if you can get people's minds focused in a certain direction, or to have them ignore certain things, or that's still something that can be paid and bought and paid for.
So are you saying that Iran would have their hand in Democracy Now? Democracy Now is in Iran's pocket?
No, not at all. They probably wish they could be, so that maybe some truth can come out, because I mean, all the people that's the enemies or that that the U.S. has problems with is just mainly because they won't clearly just do what the U.S. says, or they feel differently about what
they got. They got the gall to like have their own currency and shit like that, like not submit to this Western domination narrative. Yep, and we don't hear nothing out of those kind of countries. I thought that's what you was about to say, Pat, because they, if we're not cool with them, because I can't put ads in Iran. They stopped me from being able to put ads in Russia. There's random countries. I'd have to be looking at the thing, but there's countries in Africa that I can't run ads in. These are countries that the United States not cool with.
And there's no people of Russia. And then we gotta still be careful about that too, because if we, hear from some of the people, I mean, they'd be like, look, we'll give you dinner if you come on here and say this. You know what I'm saying? Especially in the middle of a war, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you can't tell the difference between the people necessarily, because I mean, they're practically the same people. Ukrainians, Russians, like they're very similar in their their tone, their speech, the language. So you might not know the difference. It could be a total Ukrainian that's acting as if they're Russian, saying how horrible things are, when of course, I mean, like I said, we're dealing with war, but I mean, just to promote one side over the other, it's gonna be hard to really believe. You know, at least for me. I mean, I know there's a lot of suckers out there that just, whatever they hear is like, oh man, yeah, they get all, into the moment where I know not to trust really any of it. Until like I can see there's a certain level of truth, or the purity of what's being said. But
Let me read the comments, and I want to read a bit of this article that Doc sent me. He says, "Don't underestimate how much power Hillary actually has. Enough to make power moves, just enough personality to take the throne." I don't think she can come back, though. I think her political career is done. He says, "That crypt keeper looking chick has some depressing news." That's mean. I like
true.
Amy Goodman. He's
Who?
okay. This
Amy-
is
I thought
Amy
he was.
Goodman.
I thought he was still talking about Hillary. But okay.
The United Nations meetings coverage and press releases. It says meetings coverage. General Assembly elects 18 member states to Human Rights Council. Authorizes dates of conference for establishing nuclear weapon-free zone in the Middle East. That sounds great. Speaker paid tribute to the former president of Algeria, 29th Assembly session. The General Assembly today elected 18 member states in Human Rights Council, the United Nations body responsible for promoting and protecting all human rights around the globe, and paid tribute to Abdelaziz Bouteflika, sorry y'all, a former president of Algeria and of the Assembly during its 29th session. Mr. Bouteflika, who died on 17 September at age 84, was the youngest person to be elected to the Assembly when he assumed the post at age 37 in 1974, while also serving as Algeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs. By secret ballot, the Assembly elected Argentina, Benin, Cameroon, Eritrea, Finland, Gambia, Honduras, India, Kazakhstan, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malaysia, Montenegro, Paraguay, Qatar, Somalia, United Arab Emirates, and the United States to the Human Rights Council. All 18 members will serve 3-year terms beginning January 1st, 2022. That's an interesting list right there. Paraguay, they got Somalia on there. They're bombing Somalia right now. United Arab Emirates, that's a really strange person. I mean, one. And then the United States. So the other ones sound fine.
Skip down where they're bombing. Not the next one. It tells you which ones are going out, but the paragraph after that talks about how they're elected and the patterns, how they're chosen, like where they're chosen from in the world.
I'm gonna skip through it right now. Eritrea, they're bombing Eritrea right now too. So this list is like I understand a lot of these names, but United Arab Emirates doesn't make sense. United States don't really make sense, and it's like Eritrea and Somalia jumps out to me because they're going through it right now. Anyways. The newly selected states are replacing the following outgoing members: Argentina, Austria, Bahamas, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Bulgaria, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Czech Republic, Denmark. They put Eritrea up there. Is Eritrea going or coming? Come on, you guys. How y'all going to be a major publication and have a typo like that? Are they coming or are they going? Fiji, India, Italy.
They're both. They're being reelected to it.
Okay. India, Italy, Philippines, Somalia again, Togo, and Uruguay. That's Trinidad and Tobago. What is Togo? In accordance with Assembly's Resolution 60/251, those member states were eligible for immediate re-election except delegations that had already served 2 consecutive terms, the Philippines and Togo. The 18 new members were elected according to the following pattern: 5 seats for the African states, 5, only 5. 5 seats for the Asian Pacific states, 2 seats for the Eastern European states, 3 seats for the Latin American and Caribbean states. Latin American and Caribbean states, what are those? And 3 seats for Western European and other states. Wait a minute. They said 2 for European, and then they said 3 for Western and European and other states. Western European and other states. So that's 5. That sounds like y'all said 5 for European states. That's the same amount for African and Asia, and Europe ain't even a continent.
It's because Eastern and Western Europe are 2. It's 2 for Eastern and 3 for Western Europe.
Yeah. Newly elected to Geneva-based Human Rights Council were Benin, Finland, Gambia, Honduras, Kazakhstan, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malaysia, Paraguay, Qatar, United Arab United States, Montenegro.
I want to know why United Arab Emirates is anywhere near a Human Rights Council.
That's what I'm saying. That name does not make United States either.
I wouldn't even want them to guard the door on the outside.
I don't know how the hell. That's what makes it suspicious. Like, what are they up to? Because if the United Arab Emirates is down for this, that just sounds fishy as hell.
8 months ago, they threw a guy off of a building because he was posting shirtless photos on Facebook because he was gay, and they tossed him off a building for it.
Yeah, people think the United Arab Emirates is a night. Come on, man. And this is what I be talking about, the fascism.
Most people know that they fucked up. It's just that you can't really talk about them, because of their power, their money. Like they know that they some ruthless people, but it sounds like the way they have this commission set up is that so that there can be some argument, and then of course the more powerful of those groups can still move the ball down the field.
It sounds to me like a data mining operation, because what you're going to want to do is gather information. How are you going to come if you're talking about holding somebody to human rights violations? Then you need to have evidence of that. So, but I don't think the data mining is going to be for the human rights violations. It's going to be for something else.
And no Middle Eastern states at all, mind you, despite the fact they all pretty much suck to be a human in.
Yeah, I mean, and then the list is so short. There's a lot of countries missing.
Too many missing. But I mean, when you raise that point, kind of something that I heard on the, when I was watching the World Government Summit, is that of course their solution to fair policing is some form of super AI where they will determine I guess as far as criminal activities along with the blockchain computer systems will I guess it's supposed to be like an accurate account of any and everything that's happening. But to me, I mean, that stuff is still very scary because I mean, we saw like a month ago when we did the show of how the computer ignores certain faces and it'll go directly to others. What was the one? Where the white guy was standing up and then the black guy was down kneeling.
Yeah, is there racism in technology?
Yeah. So it's kind of weird to me. I don't know. Like this is where they come together to try to plan how they're gonna govern us as a world.
As a world, this is what it is. That's like a practice. This is practice. Let me read it more of this article because it got interesting. I was reading while you was talking.
Well, there are 2 members that just have observer members. That's Palestine and the Holy See, Rome. And there are actually 3 countries. There's only 3 countries that aren't members of and there's 193 that are. The 3 that aren't is Kosovo, Western Sahara, and guess what? Taiwan, Republic of China.
Well, what I would say that all
But if we recognize them in the UN as their own country, China loses its fucking mind.
That's what I was about to say, because that's the issue. Because Western Sahara is not recognized either. So that's what those places have in common. And Palestine is not recognized either.
No,
Yeah,
Palestine
because
is Palestine is recognized. It's just contested as to what the borders are.
Yeah, but if you pull up Palestine on
They
the map,
they don't want to be part of the UN right now because the UN is what took part of their country and gave it to and made Israel.
and why would they? Just like Russia, why would they? Why would they? I don't understand it. It don't make sense to me. But Russia's a part of the aren't they a part of the what are they a part of? United Nations? Aren't they a part of the United Nations?
They're a founding member. They're
Yeah,
one of the only 5 seats on the permanent World Council.
well, and they're trying to get rid of Russia now in the UN. That was something one of the lady said on Democracy Now. Like,
If they do that, then they need to dissolve the UN because the UN has failed.
Because the whole point of it was to make sure that we
bring
don't
people
have
together.
like another world war and shit, that we can all be like chopping it up. Let me read some more of this. It says Abdullah Shahid Maldives. This gets a little interesting. I was just reading it. President of the General Assembly led the assembly tribute to Mr. Bouteflika, who in 1974 became one of the youngest persons ever elected as assembly president. It was during his term that the assembly adopted Resolution 326. Did I read this? Question of Palestine, Mr. Cheese said, adding, also played an important role in the non-aligned movement and the Group of 77, developing countries in China. He believed in international cooperation and solidarity, defending decolonization processes, and upheld the value of human rights. That sounds great. He also believed in empowering women through greater participation in decision-making. That sounds great too. He showed us that, yes, it is possible for the United Nations to be a community of nations united, Mr. Shahid said, adding, his contributions are now part of the annals of diplomatic history. Antonio Gutierrez, Secretary General of the United States, said that Mr. Bouteflika was particularly active in decolonization issues and strongly advocated for a more inclusive United Nations in the post-Second World War era. Many will remember that in 1974, he invited former President leader Yasser Arafat to address the assembly. He played a central role in the non-aligned movement and took a firm stand against apartheid in South Africa, whose membership in the organization was suspended under his presidency. He also supported the democratic opposition in Portugal and the liberation movements of former Portuguese colonies during the dictatorship of Antonio de Oliveira Salazar, the Secretary General said. Added, you know, this screams CIA to me. This screams controlled opposition. Let me read a little bit more. The permanent observer for the state of Palestine speaks on behalf of the Arab group, paid tribute to the Mr. Bouteflika on his word freedom fighter. During his years as Minister of Foreign Affairs, Algerian diplomacy was pride of place, and he said it was a period of richness, and Mr. Bouteflika pushed for a reassessment of the global economic system that met the needs of the least developed countries. He worked to strengthen the sovereignty of peoples. The 29th session was a transitional phase. For example, Mr. Bouteflika called Mr. Arafat to take the floor of the assembly podium for the first time and represent the Palestinian people. That sounds great. I just
is he still alive?
No, he died in whatever. He was 84. Let me read a little bit more. Thanking the Secretary General of the Assembly President and the regional groups for their condolences, the representative of Algeria said Mr. Bouteflika worked tirelessly to promote the values of the United Nations and played a leading role in building a multilateral system. Mr. Bouteflika also led a review of global economic systems to encompass. Did I read this? They keep saying the same stuff, it seems like. Also delivering tributes. Okay, that's enough. Wait. The Assembly authorized the Conference of Establishment of Middle East Zone free of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction to convene its second session from 29 November to 3rd December 2021, and the Executive Board of the United States Development Program, United Nations Population Fund,
Well, the problem with that I have with this whole idea, these nuclear weapons, like if it's unlawful or illegal for one country, it should be the same for all. And if that's something that's taken totally off the like to some extent, the world need to be like Will and Jada, like you got to take marriage off the table. I mean, a divorce off the table. You know what I'm saying? Like some things just cannot, like if it doesn't exist, it's not something that anyone can threaten the other with, and you can use much more ways to handle stuff instead of threatening each other with nuclear weapons. It's just,
and it sucks because the scary part is who one of them. It's like one person is gonna say they're not producing nuclear weapons and they're gonna be like, surprise, I got nuclear weapons, I'm taking over the world, y'all can't do shit. So that's the fear, right? And then the United States would be the country that would do some shit like that.
Yeah, amongst others, but
amongst others,
yeah, but I mean, either way, I mean, it's gotten to the point where all these other, because I mean, really, this shit could be way more simpler than what it is. I mean, if people are really having disputes, like, I mean, if anything, like our biggest fight should be, on trade. Okay, my country produces this, that, and the other. Who, me?
Oh, you're back. You're back. Yeah, you're back. Go ahead.
Now I said the biggest conversation they should be having internationally is trade. What one country can produce better than another, and properly, share what you have with
and sharing information. We don't share information very well either. Like, I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. But we're going in the other direction.
Share information. We don't even share information properly within our own
the country.
I mean, yeah.
So, what was I gonna say? The multiple countries. Damn it, I lost it because this screen got a little. It says anchor on my screen. I don't know why it's throwing me off. Multiple countries. What the hell was we saying? It doesn't. Oh, we're going in the other direction. India is buying. They just bought a bunch of helicopters and shit. You know what I'm saying? They're turning into a big boy on the scene. They're gonna be another, like they're gonna be like Iran, but a friend. They're gonna be friendly, but they also gonna, have the weapons that, like, okay, don't come over here with no bullshit.
Well, I mean, the whole,
and that's the only thing they respect. That's the reason why North Korea gets to still exist.
But at the same time, is that collusion? Like, is that the U.S. and Europe nations coming together to provide them with these helicopters and whatever else that might surface soon? To because I mean, if China is the problem in that region, then they have somebody that's already there that'll fight their war. Like they can have, can be a proxy, just like what they're doing in Ukraine.
Anything can happen. Ukraine. Anything could happen related to that. I cannot predict that. So yeah, it could totally be some kind of scenario like that. Maybe they're just trying to be, the arm of someone, because that's what we are. The United States we're the military arm of the like Western world, if you will, for Europe and shit. We're, so so India could be, who knows? So, but I think it has more to do with, like I said, what they respect is the person who's got big guns. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't fuck with North Korea. They talk bad about North Korea, but they don't really fuck with North Korea because, repercussions could happen. Same thing with Iran. And they've been wanting to bust Iran up for the longest. But why haven't they? Why haven't they? It's because they respect Iran, because Iran gonna tear some shit up on their way out the door.
Oh yeah.
If they lose, I don't know if they would lose.
but I mean, they also have the support of Russia and China and a lot of the Asian countries. So it's like they still gotta walk lightly unless they really about that trouble. Unless
Yeah,
they like
that real trouble, not this skirmish shit like what's going on in Ukraine. No, the
yeah
real life, real
yeah
life, not
yeah.
sanctions.
Yeah, man. That's hot shit right there, man.
So what we gonna do?
We want you to be an activist, and don't take our word for it. Look that shit up. Pulley.